briefly, one of the things that stood out for me in group 3 was this idea of having a future that allows students to practice building solutions. And I think that I'm sitting with that because as a former teacher, as a former school leader, there wasn't always opportunities for students, not just to be at the table to weigh in, but to actually design and build alongside the educators in the building in a way that actually shifted and altered what we were driving towards, right? And I think that the student who named that is onto something that we just haven't fully embraced in a way that would create space and opportunity for students' voices to be lifted up and amplified, and actually to quiet the voices of the adults in the space in sometimes a much needed way. And so I'm sitting with what that means for me as an educator and the schools that I support here in Detroit. So I really appreciated that push around what it means to allow students and to support students.
It really worked, started to work when we all got into the same mindset. And I say that because a lot of people aren't used to being in this type of environment where like true adult, like youth adult co-partnership, like very like honest, raw, like partnership. And so getting everyone on the same page of like, yes, we want this to be authentic. Yes, this like we want it to be real. And like even from like a youth standpoint, like knowing that you have the same seat at the table, but not knowing if you actually have that seat at the table or if it's just like a front to have that seat at the table. And when everyone was on the same page of where we were, that's when things like really started kicking into gear as a whole. And we started being able to trust each other and like go into ideas and sessions where we were honest with each other about what didn't work and what did work and the opinions that we had. And just like there was a lot more trust and honesty and authenticity when that worked. So I guess what didn't work is I think establishing that from the get-go. I think that needs to be established a little bit harder, and not even from like because like it wasn't there, but I think that people just need to know that this is real and this is authentic and this isn't trying to make you feel like we're just using you to have a youth voice, or like this isn't like student council. Like this isn't student council at all. Like this is, you really do have a seat at the table. Like you really do have a voice, and what you say actually can affect what happens in the future. Like that is something that I think going forward, just being able to, I don't know how to establish that better, but just brainstorming ways to establish that better.
There were at times where I feel like I always felt, not always felt, but like I had that natural tendency to like step back and to stay on mute, which is what I've always been like. But this fellowship made it feel more easier to step into power, more easier to turn on my mic and like share my thoughts.
I asked why, like what were the conditions that were set that you were like, it actually made me come up with more? What were the things that helped contribute to that?
There were like multiple conditions. I would say like the first one was, I don't know how to describe it, but there's just this atmosphere, this feeling of the fellowship, where you won't be judged for what you say. It's more like once you say what you are thinking of, once you share your thoughts, there's no like, maybe there's like disagreement, but there's healthy disagreement. And it's not like group projects at school, or like my experience of like group projects or interactions with other people where you are afraid of what they're going to say in response.
Something that really stuck with me that was shared in our artifact group was said by Colby. And he said, like, this experience really made me think that like, this is about learning through leading, creating, and partnership. And those three things like are incredibly distinct and incredibly powerful on their own. But I think together, like these three things embody what this experience was for me.
It was like we went from co-learning to co-creation, and we didn't redevelop our how we work together. And I actually think that like that was a big jump, and we learned a lot. I as an adult like learned a lot between when we started the fellowship and we started to co-develop, co-create. What's the responsibility for adults who participate in the fellowship to provide cover for young people to lead? And like, I actually think that's a huge place that like we could intervene, right? We could share real learning about that. When did young people tell us they tried to do this and an adult could have intervened to provide, not to plan, but to provide cover, to take that other adult side and say, hey, young people are the stakeholders. Here's why this matters. Here's how this will benefit you and the outcomes that you're driving toward, like adult speak or current system speak. And we didn't explore that a lot. Like, what is the unique role of adults to provide cover for young people? And when is it appropriate to do that? And when is it like maybe not safe to do that? And like, I actually think that's a whole nother thing that I would love to engage in. And if there's like a space for continued learning for the adults to do that, I would be really grateful for that.
When you get to the promised land, you cannot unsee it. Like you can't go back. And I feel like this space has been like the space, like this is like the best learning environment and experience. And I can't unsee it now. Like I can't go back from what I have experienced. So I feel like this is the promised land for students and adults and youth, like to experience spaces together where leading happens, creating happens, and partnership happens.
And so I definitely want to give my appreciation to all the adults who are attending now, all the adults who helped us along the way, because they've always appreciated us for doing what we're doing, period, end of story.